Hello, welcome to Algebra 1. But before we begin getting into algebra, which is the use of variables, we're going to look at arithmetic, the use of numbers. We're going to discuss what a real number is. Now, real numbers are numbers located on the number line. Alright? These are numbers that can be found on the number line. Any number that cannot is called an imaginary number, or a complex number. So, let's take a look at the question we're asked. Write the numbers in order from least to greatest, and then place those numbers on the number line and label them. Well, first we're going to place 0 on the number line, right in the middle. Okay, you can put 1 right here. Put -1 right over here. 2.5 we can place somewhere over here. This would be 2. So 2.5 would be somewhere between 2 and 3. So if that's 2 and that's 3, 2.5 is right here. Okay. 0.3, this little bar here means repeating. So that's really the same thing as 0.3333, and then the 3's repeat forever. So that's what the bar means. Okay. So 0.3's are going to be located somewhere between 0 and 1, closer to 0, that's about 0.5, 0.4, 0.3, so a little bit to the right of 0.3, so that would be 0.333, or just to be consistent with what the question asked, just 0.3, repeating. Okay, -2/3. Now, the question is, where does that go? Well, thirds would mean to go between 0 and 1 and divide that into equal spaces that make up 3 parts. So it should be over here. This would be 1/3, 2/3, this would be 3/3. So it should be here. So that's -2/3. Now an easier way to determine where it goes is to rewrite this as a decimal. Alright, so let's look at how to turn a fraction into a decimal. One way is to divide. Since this is a negative divided by a positive, the answer is going to be negative. Okay? Now we have 2 divided by 3. Alright? If you remember how to do long division, this shouldn't be too hard, but I would never do this by hand. A calculator can be used. We have over here our TI-84, which is our graphing calculator. We're going to use that to help us do this right after this. I'm just going to show you one time how to do this by hand. 3 does not go into 2, so it goes in there 0 times. We need a decimal to come up. So now we need another 0 here. 3 goes into 20 6 times evenly. 6 times 3 is 18, and we're supposed to subtract that from here and bring down the remainder. That's 2. Okay? Now we have another 0 here, and that comes down, and we do that again. 3 still goes into 26 times, and you can see that this is going to continue to happen. 6 times 3 is 18. That's 2, and that's going to continue. So that really means that this is equal to 0.666666, or 6 repeating. Alright, so that's one way to write things as a repeating decimal. So this is 0.6, which is located here. 0.3 is actually equal to 1/3. We're going to look at how to write that as a decimal, as a fraction shortly. But to turn -2/3 into a decimal, we could use a calculator. We use -2, not the minus button, negative button, divided by 3. And it will be equal to -0.666, which is what we said it is. It has to round towards the end because the calculator doesn't have infinite space. Now some calculators work with fractions, so does this one. If we press alpha, y equals, we get fraction mode. See this fraction area here? N over d is numerator over denominator. We can enter a fraction that we have here, so that's -2/3. And if you want to turn that into a decimal, well, I'm going to press enter to lock it in as an answer, or the previous answer. If I want to turn that into a decimal, I can press alpha, not alpha, actually, I have to press math. And in math we have fraction and decimal. So I have a fraction, I can turn it into a decimal, which is what we said it was. Similarly, now that this is the answer, I could press fraction and turn it into a fraction. So you can turn decimals to fractions and fractions to decimals. Let's say I had 0.33333 here. 0.3, I'm just going to put a bunch of 3's here. Enough that the calculator knows that it's a repeating decimal, so a lot is better. More the better. Press enter to lock it in as an answer. And now I'll press math fraction. And that turns it to 1/3. So this is actually equal to 1/3. Okay? That's why this goes here. 0.3 is in between here, and 0.6 is in between here. Oh, I left out the negative. That's negative 0.6. Should really make that more careful. Negative 0.6. Alright, let's look at pi. Pi is a number most people know as 3.14. Alright, so let's use the color I chose for that, which is pink. That is 3.14. Actually continues forever. Now, unlike this repeating number and this repeating number, pi does not repeat. It just has a different pattern everywhere. So it actually cannot be written as a fraction. To look at pi, we press second. And this button here, here's pi. Press enter. That's pi. It continues forever. We can't see the whole thing. And we can't turn it into a fraction using the math feature. Any other decimal that we enter would be a terminating decimal. And terminating decimals can be written as fractions. Oh, for whatever reason it didn't want to write this as a fraction. But it should. This is tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, millionths, 10 millionths, 100 millionths. That should be equal to 3, 2, 5, 4, 6, 8, 5, 5 over 100 millionths, so 8 zeros. That's this. They're equal. Oh, I actually left out. I have one too many zeros. Okay. So let's take a look at negative 2 radical 3. So that's negative 2 times radical 3. So we're going to enter the radical button, which is above the squaring button, and press enter. And that gives us this decimal, which is also not a fraction. So you cannot turn this into a fraction using the math feature, because it's an irrational number. Pi and this are irrational numbers. They don't terminate like 2.5, and they don't repeat like 1/3 and 2/3. So they cannot be written as fractions. So that's, oh, that should be in gray. So let's put that in gray. It's negative 3.4641, and it continues. Alright, so pi belongs where on the number line? Well, if this is 3, 3.14 is about here. So that's pi. Okay. And negative 2 radical 3 is located over here. That's negative 1, so this is negative 2. That'll be negative 3, negative 4. It should be located around here, which is negative 3, negative 2 radical 3. Alright, so these are the orders, and they're actually, in addition to being on the number line, I did put them in least to greatest order, because numbers that are further to the left are smaller, and numbers further to the right are larger on a number line. So pi is larger than 0. 1 is larger than negative 1. 2.5 is larger than negative 2 radical 3. A number like negative 1 billion is actually much smaller than 1. A lot of people think that because it's 1 billion, it would be larger than 1, but that's not how numbers work. So let's take a look at some more stuff. Alright, we're asked to write these as decimals, so we could either enter the fraction in fraction mode, which is negative 7/12, And we don't even have to store it as an answer. I just do that a lot. We can press math decimal, and it's going to turn that into a decimal. So this is negative 0.583, and we're going to put a bar here to say that the 3 repeats. We could also just do the division. For this one, we'll do 85 divided by 99. So that's 0.85 repeating. Now we notice there's a 6 here, but that must be a rounded number. You'll notice that the next number should have been 8, and that would have rounded up. 3 radical 5, we can enter into the calculator and determine its value. Press enter. That's 6.70820 ... It's going to continue. Now, writing decimals as fractions, we're going to take a look at doing this by hand. I mean, if you want, you can do them with a calculator. 2.6 as a fraction, just math, press fraction. That would be 13/5. That's a simplified fraction. Let's take a look at why that is. Well, this is 2.6. 0.6 is the tenths place, so this is 26 tenths. That simplifies to be 13/5, which is what the calculator is, by dividing both the top and the bottom by 2. This is negative 54 what? Hundredths, because this is the tenths and this is the hundredths place. Alright, that'll simplify also. Let's see what the calculator says. Alpha y equals, for fractions, that's negative 54 over 100, and it will simplify it to 27/50. So we can divide both of these by 2 and get negative 27/50. Alright, now, writing repeating decimals, let's ignore what's down there, that's not important right now. Writing repeating decimals as fractions is a little harder. I'll show you how to do that. We'll call 2.6 repeating x. Now here's what we're going to do. This is the idea. We're going to make, this is 1x. So 10x would mean to multiply this by 10, or make this 26.666. Does that make sense? I hope so. If you multiply a number by 10, it moves the decimal over one spot. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to subtract these two numbers from one another, and it gets us 10x minus 1x is 9x. That didn't work out so well. Alright, so 10x minus 1x is 9x. Now this is 26 minus 2, which is 24. All these 6's are going to cancel out and be 0. So x is equal to, we now divide both sides by 9. And x is equal to 24/9. So you can convert these back into fractions. Now 3 goes into both of these evenly, so that is the same thing as 8 over 3. We use a calculator. 2.666666. I need a lot of 6's to make the calculator know this. And press fraction. I get 8/3. Same thing. So a calculator will do this as well. In this case, we have x is equal to 3.5454, and so on. Now I want to make these move over 2 places so that I'll have this set up properly. So I'm going to make that 100x to move the decimal twice. So that's 354.5454. Now when I subtract, we will get 99x is equal to, those all cancel out, This is 351. So x is equal to 351.